The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe.
Greater Salem, New Hampshire Chamber of Commerce presents Success in the 603, a podcast focusing on Granite Staters who have had success in the public or private sector. We'll hear stories of how these people came to be, where they are, and what you can do to get there too. Sit back and enjoy. You are in wicked awesome company.
Say hello.
Hello and welcome to Success in the 603. I'm Donna Morris, President of the Greater Salem Chamber of Commerce.
Hi, and I'm Craig Dufton. I'm with Keller Williams Realty, and I also own United Compressor and Pump.
So we're really excited. Today is our official launch of this podcast. And Craig, why don't you take a minute and tell people a little about what our vision for this is?
Well, the vision is pretty simple. We're gonna bring in people who've had tremendous success in New Hampshire, and we're gonna have them tell their stories. And we want people to get whatever they can get out of it, even if they get a little piece or a big piece, or they find a new mentor out of this whole thing, then it's going to be a great time.
Yeah.
I'm super psyched and wicked awesome and all that stuff to be here.
Yes, we're in wicked awesome company. So
we are.
One of the things in my role as the president of the chamber, as I see all the time, is I get the opportunity to interact with a lot of different leaders in their industries, and everyone has a story. It's not just what you've seen them at the final president or whatever it might be product.
Yep.
There's a great story about how they got there, and I think those are the things that we're looking to explore and share with the public. So we have our first guest. You want to do a little intro, Craig?
Our wonderful first guest, a good friend of mine, Peter Rayno. He's from Enterprise Bank.
He's okay.
Yeah, he's been a long time involvement in the Salem community. So we'll let you speak, because you are so good at speaking, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself, where you came from, a little bit of your background, and we'll go from there.
Great to be with you guys. This the Studio 21 podcast facility is just beautiful.
It's amazing.
It's awesome.
At the top of two guys.
I had the chance to get a tour of it when Dave first opened it, and it's gorgeous. So it's great to be up here with you as well.
Thanks. It's great to have you.
So just a little bit about myself. I grew up very close by in Methuen, and was born and raised there, and never really ventured too far away other than to college. Went to Central Catholic, went to Assumption College after school, came back to work in the local area in banking, lived in Salem for many years, and moved out to Hampton with my wife 5 years ago, but still work here in Salem. I'm
still very involved in Salem, too,
well. You know, as I said at the most recent Chamber of Commerce Awards dinner for the Greater Salem Chamber, although I was born in Methuen, I live in Hampton now. Salem welcomed me 20 years ago. Salem is where my children were born. It's where I worked and volunteered and coached, and it really is my true home.
Yeah, we coached together in Salem baseball.
We did. I had to calm him down quite a bit, Donna. Craig would get a little excitable, but
a little bit.
So that's it.
So what I'm hearing is that you fell in love with the 603.
Yeah,
New Hampshire embraced you.
Well, and New Hampshire did embrace me. I started my banking career in Massachusetts. So when I got out of college, and I always say I'm an accidental banker. I never went to school saying I'm going to be a banker. I actually.
Do you think anybody does? Do you think anyone goes to school?
I've got a bunch of
17 years old. They go, banking. That's it.
I got a bunch of young guys and young gals who work for me who've always wanted a career in banking. That wasn't my initial goal.
What was it?
I wanted to either get into municipal management or politics. I was a political science major and an econ minor. I stepped that up to be a double major.
Nice.
And all through college, I had worked in a bank as a teller through summers and Christmases. When my friends were going to Daytona for break, I was working. And I enjoyed it, but I stayed on track and really wanted to get into municipal management, and got out of college with a boatload of student debt, not as much as they do today.
Right.
Really couldn't afford going on right away for my master's in public administration. So went back into banking as a management trainee, and been doing it for 36 years. And it was accidental, but it was the best accidental move I ever made.
I'm sorry it hasn't worked out for you, huh?
Yeah, I know. It's worked out great. It's worked out great because it blends so much of what I like to do.
Sure.
Working with people, being involved in the community. I can do it all and really help
I think that's a great lesson, too, for young people. Not everyone ends up where they think they are going to start out.
Sure.
You've had a great career in banking, and we're anxious for you to share more of that.
Sure.
But yeah,
I'd be curious to find out how many people are using their degree. You know what I mean? Like they graduated from college, and I remember Joe Carney, who owned Rockingham Park. He was a history major, and do history majors go to go to school and college to learn how to run Rockingham Racetrack? Nope.
Yeah.
There's no scientific data, Craig, but I'm thinking it's got to be a 50-50 mix. Like I said, I've got about 25 people on our commercial lending team, and I do oversee for Enterprise Bank commercial lending in New Hampshire and the Merrimack Valley, Massachusetts. And I would say of those, and most of the lenders, almost all the lenders have college degrees, I'd say it's 50-50.
Really?
Yeah, I've got some who went into finance, wanted to get into banking, and I've got others who, as Donna said, maybe were on track to do something else, ended up accidentally with us through whatever reason, and it worked out great. So,
well, I want to read a quote. You said this quote in the Eagle Tribune a couple weeks ago when you were getting the 2018 Bill Brown Business Award from
William A.
Brown. I'm sorry,
Business Person of the Year.
Business Person of the Year, a
It's
great,
a very prestigious award,
yes,
Peter. Congratulations.
it was very humbling.
So I'm going to read it to you. It said, when I first got out of college in 1982, my dad had both of us join the Methuen Exchange Club. He has always had a community service role, and he continues to do that. Talk about your dad's influence in your life. I mean, all the things you just talked about, I never heard police officer come out of any of that stuff. Did you ever have any desire to be a police officer when you were younger, or?
I did. When I was in high school, I kicked it around. He said, absolutely not. He said, go be a lawyer instead. Well, I said, I don't want to do that either.
He stopped you at the pass.
You know, Donna asked about role models and mentors, and I firmly believe it's hard to have one. I think you have different mentors and role models for different aspects of your life. But certainly my overall role model are my parents, but especially my dad. So yeah, he was a police officer for 35 years in Methuen.
Wow.
And he gave back to the community. He always did, and still does. I mean, he still volunteers at St. Monica's Church.
Yeah, we still have the pleasure of his company at Rotary. Every
and
now
your
then.
father-in-law knew him pretty well too. And it's, you know, to just see, he didn't have to be involved as a police officer. He didn't have to be involved in the community the way he was.
Right.
And that always inspired me. He's just such a good man. And I had breakfast with him this morning. He's such a role model and
excellent.
Very cool guy. So that's always been important to me.
Nice. So what about business influences? Who got you on the track? Who kept you in the banking industry versus... There's got to be somebody there that you can... Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a couple people. Okay. And it's funny you use the phrase, who kept you in? Because when I first got out of college, and I was sitting there, I still can remember sitting there at my commencement in Worcester at Assumption College, and, you know, we had one of these go-getter commencement speakers who said, you know, the world is your oyster. You'll be able to do anything you want. I actually believed him. And so when I got out of college and went to work for the bank, I was actually with a Bank of New England, not the one that's in New Hampshire now, but the original Bank of New England. And let's just say I was a little entitled back 35 years ago, and I was probably not the most, I was not the best employee. No. And I had a boss at, and I later went to Arlington Trust Company, and a lot of people would remember that bank. Sure. It was very influential. And I just had an attitude. I was just a wise ass. You can say wise ass on podcasts. You can say wise ass, yes.
And we can't get away with that on SCTV. But I had an attitude, and I had a boss at the time who was running the Methuen office of Arlington Trust on Route 28. Down by Wendy's. Yep. His name was Russ St. Jean, and Russ is still with us, and he's in his 80s. Wow. Great guy. And he brought me in his office. He said, if it weren't for your father, I would probably fire you.
Wow.
And he said, and I said, and I knew, and it really kind of shook me up. He said, but, you know, I know you can do this, and you've got all the ability in the world. And he was awesome. And it was that cold bucket of ice water over my head where I realized, I love this industry, but you know what? You got to be humble or get humbled. Right. And Russ, to this day, I mean, he sent me a nice email when I got the Bill Brown Award, and I said, would never have gotten it if it weren't for you. So he absolutely was one of my first, and then several others along the way. Most recently, Jack Clancy, the CEO at Enterprise Bank. Here's a CEO of a $3 billion publicly traded bank. It's traded on the NASDAQ, 500 employees. He is the most humble, down-to-earth guy. Yeah. He walks into every one of our 24 branches, knows the names of every teller.
Wow.
He's very approachable. He's fantastic.
And I see CEOs of other, not just banks, but other institutions who let their success go to their head, and they don't realize that it's every one of those 525 employees who allow for that success. So my most recent one certainly is Jack, and I like to think I take the same approach among my my teammates, and I don't even like the word employees.
Right.
To me, it almost sounds demeaning, but I'd like to say that about my teammates in the 10 locations I'm at. So,
well, what did Richard Branson say about take care of your employees and they'll take care of your business? So, you know, that's basically how it works.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So let's talk about now, we talked about your banking, talked a little background, but let's talk about the giving back to the community that you do. And let's talk about the things that you're involved in right now. Let people know what you're doing.
Sure. Well, you know, you talk about role models, and I was so pleased to have at the Bill Brown, at the Chamber Award dinner, Liz McDonald. Liz was a major role model for me for community involvement. She was the manager of the Citizens Bank here in Salem, and I was new to the community. We just moved here with the kids, didn't know anybody, and she was involved in everything. And she flew up from North Carolina when I got that award.
Nice.
And that meant the absolute world to me. So I was very involved for many years, still am with the Chamber of Commerce. I love the fact that you, with the Chamber of Commerce or any of these business organizations, you start out as acquaintances. You start out maybe doing a little bit of business if you're fortunate, but if you're committed to it and you're passionate about it, they become friends.
Right.
And it transcends business. And that's what the Chamber of Commerce has been for me.
Excellent.
Very involved over the years. As you know, Salem Youth Baseball gave so much to it, and it gave 10 times more back to me. Same with the Boys and Girls Club. But today, I serve on the board of PBS New Hampshire. We just recently changed our name from New Hampshire Public Television. Public broadcasting. Growing up in Mass, it was Channel 2.
Sure.
But
Zoom and all.
Yeah, Zoom and Mr. Rogers and all that. And then in high school, Monty Python. And then after college, Ken Burns' Civil War.
Yep.
And I was just always passionate about PBS, so I'm proud to be on that board. I'm very involved as a member of the board at Central Catholic. I serve on several committees there. The Rotary with you, and been a longtime board member. And I think that's it for right now. So.
You sure you can't find some time to do something else?
Yeah,
then?
you know, I'm always open.
We were thinking a podcast with you with some beer stuff because we know that you're big into.
Oh, I'd love
craft
to do
beers.
that. I'd love to do that. Yeah, that's always been a fun thing on the side to do.
Excellent.
So
I enjoy reading those articles that you've written.
I try to inject a little bit of wit and a little bit of education. And the one thing
plus, you get to drink beers.
Yeah. I don't get paid much for that. I get paid as much for that as I do my other volunteer work. But that's so enjoyable. And I always say when I do those reviews on whether it's a brew pub or a beer, I never write anything negative because you know what? Everybody's trying.
Sure.
So if I go to a place and it's just not that good, I just don't write about it.
Right.
So I like to share the positive.
Well, there's other things too. The new restaurant, there's a new restaurant that opened up here in Hampstead. You know, we went there and we're like,
Jameson's
on the corner. It's called.
Oh,
great
yes.
little spot.
I heard about that one.
You know, they had a little tough time, but you know, you got to give them time. You got to
We were there
find your
last
feet.
night.
Good.
Yeah.
It was too crowded to get in. So
That's a
that's
plus.
a good sign.
Nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded.
Yeah, Yogi Berra.
Yeah, it was good. So we do need to take a small commercial break, which is the success in the 603 is made possible through support of our sponsors. You can see them scrolling up there, and I just want to give a shout
Thank you
out
all
to
very much.
Travis Terry and Company CPA. Travis Terry and Company operates on the foundation of honesty and integrity and hard work for you. Located at 25 Main Street in Salem, New Hampshire, they make taxes less taxing. You can give them a call at 603-898-2511. Thanks to Travis Terry.
Thank you, Donna. I have a Peter story. Peter and I have known each other from banking for, we coached together, and you and I were just casually one day. I was having a tough time with another bank that I'm not going to mention, but they were pulling in a line of credit on our company. It had a compressor, and we were having a hard time with it. They wanted the money in a few months, and I mentioned it to you just in passing. I think we were at Michelle Park, we're at Joe Bergeron Field, and you're like, oh, come see me tomorrow, and we'll take care of it. And my brother and I filled out a couple of forms, and we switched over to Enterprise Bank, and we never looked back. It's been almost 12 years, I think, that we've been doing business together. And you're, I don't want to promote that your company doesn't say no, but every time we ask for something, you really try to accommodate everything that we do. And I think that your personal style, your personality is dictating your success in business. The success that you're doing personally is really transcending into your work too.
That's very flattering, very complimentary, but it goes back to this. And Craig, I lived and worked in Salem for many, many years.
Yep.
And although I live in Hampton now, I'm still involved. And I knew the people. I know the people. So, we knew each other. And when it comes to analyzing a credit or a loan request, they talk about the 5 C's of credit. And it's, capital and credit and so on and so forth. But the one is character, and you can't assess character if you don't know the people.
Sure.
And some of the larger financial institutions where they're making the decisions in Providence or Pittsburgh or Toronto or wherever,
right.
they don't know the people they're dealing with. And I knew you, and I knew your family, and you get to, there are countless stories like that where you say, okay, maybe something on paper at that point in time doesn't look ideal,
right.
but you know what the person's all about, and you're willing to make an investment in that, and it's been a great relationship for the bank. And fortunately, my instincts on character, listen, you always make some mistakes, but by and large, they've been widely successful, and I think that's rubbed off on a lot of the folks who work with me.
Yes,
as well.
Dwight and
Dwight
those
Feeney
guys are
and
they're
those guys.
fantastic.
Billy Collins, yeah.
I mean, the whole organization, is they just make you feel, as a small business owner, they make you feel, that you're just as important as anybody else that's walking into the room, and that's an important aspect that you can talk about in any field, in anything that you do. You really want that service. People, it just comes down to service. They want to be treated well.
Well, listen, I'm at an institution that its values are aligned with my personal values when it comes to service and when it comes to assisting people. And in the past, I've worked for institutions where that wasn't always the case.
Right.
And so for the last 14 years, I just had my 14th anniversary with Enterprise. For the last 14 years, I've been fortunate enough to work in a company whose values and mission are aligned with mine. And
it's awesome.
It's a great privilege to go in
It
there
does feel
every day.
good, though. You talk about you switching jobs. Like 5 years ago, I became a realtor. And I love my company. I love United Compressor. I love working with family. And there's nothing like a family-run business, that
Right.
runs well. But you find that you find a calling, and 14 years ago you find a company, you walk in there and you're like, yeah, I can stay here for the rest of my life and feel good about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they'll have me, And
Absolutely.
You grew right along with them, though.
But we're very fortunate in this community. There's several community banks that have a similar
Absolutely.
approach as well, and it's not just us. And those folks all give back to the community as well.
So, I mean, that kind of leads us into what advice would you give to leadership? What I'm hearing is get involved. Find something that you're passionate about. And so, I guess, do you have your quote? Did you do your homework? Because part of our segment is about what we'd like you to do is
Come up with a quote.
Well, we're calling it the Santo Insurance Quote of the Week. See what we did right there? Insurance quotes. And we want to know a quote that's maybe influenced your life, and that if you could go back in time and talk to 20-year-old Peter Rayno, other than maybe be a little nicer at that bank.
Well,
what's your advice for people to live a successful life, both personally and professionally?
So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking of all kinds of cool Gandhi quotes, or JFK, or Richard Branson, or whatever.
Yogi Berra.
But you know what? Honestly, there is a quote that I repeat all the time to the folks I work with, and I repeat to myself as well whenever I'm in a tough situation. And honestly, it's not sexy, it's corny, but it's true, and it's the golden rule. And it's Luke 6:31, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. If I call my doctor because I'm having a problem, I'd like a call back that day.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So that's what I do for my clients. If I've got somebody who's looking for who's looking to get a loan approved, and it's a tough deal and I just can't put it together, they don't want to be ignored. They don't want a letter in the mail. They want a phone call and say, look, I'd like to sit down with you and tell you where we're a little short right now and what we can do to do better. That same philosophy drives me with my teammates, with the folks I work with. If I've got somebody doing a great job, I celebrate them in front of everybody. I put them in the spotlight. Why? Because that's how I wanted to be treated when I was there, when I was, their age. And when I have somebody who might not be doing the best job possible, they don't want to hear it in an email. They don't want to hear it in an annual review. They want me to call them up and say, hey, can we get together for 15 minutes and share, here's where you're coming up short and what I think we can do to get better. So, you know what? That golden rule is absolutely the guiding key to successful dealing with clients, successful dealing with employees or teammates of yours. It never fails. And
hey, I see it in parenting and marriage as well. Like, if I'm going to be late, I want a phone call. I'd want, make the call or whatever it might be, so we don't worry about
And
each
here's
other.
what blows my mind. Every twice a year, I speak on leadership to some of the younger folks at the bank. And I always I always show a video to start with from A Christmas Carol, the original one from the 30s. And Ebenezer Scrooge is looking back when he was an intern with old Fezziwig's Christmas party. And Fezziwig is just this jolly guy, mentors these people. They love him. And he goes, oh, I loved old Fezziwig. So why didn't he act like him?
Right.
And I am stunned at how many folks act as First of all, almost everybody who's a supervisor are supervising people in positions they once held. Almost always. Why would you be such a lousy boss? You know what you valued in a boss. Why wouldn't you be the same thing?
Yes, it works both ways. You're correct. It can be just as bad as you had a bad boss, and then you become a bad boss too, because that's the only thing that you were used to, and you got to break out of that mold.
But it just goes back to what I said. You just treat people the way you want to be treated. You won't go wrong.
Absolutely.
And I'm always amazed at people who deviate from that. And it's been the same thing with my clients as well.
That's a great first quote, Donna, for our first podcast.
Yeah.
It's the golden rule's corny and everything else and outdated. It isn't outdated. Right. And I was trying to come up with something slick because I knew you was hoping I'd come up with something from Steve Jobs, and he's got great quotes too. But that's it.
No,
that's
listen, I didn't have any expectations. I just wanted to know one that because you know what my second question was going to be after you said the quote is, why'd you choose that quote? So you've already just went right in and explained it, so I don't even have to ask.
No.
But I'm going to give it to Donna. She's going to talk about one more sponsor, and then when we get back after that, we're going to talk about your habits and rituals or anything that you're doing every day that has led you to where you are today.
Okay.
All right.
Well, again, success in the 603 is made possible through our sponsors, and we want to give a shout out to Canopy Lake Park. Canopy Lake Park, just for fun. For over 115 years, Canopy Lake Park has been leading the way in family entertainment. This year for the holiday season, give the gift of a memory with tickets to Canopy Lake Park. They make great stocking stuffers, and you can get those tickets at www.canopylakepark.com.
Yeah, we're getting to that time of year where we have to stuff stockings.
And I used to tell my kids who are grown now, but when they were little, the aunties would be like, oh, what do we get them? What do we get them? I'm like, go make a memory. Take them to a show. Take them to the park.
Sure.
They don't need another piece of plastic. Go make a memory with them. So Canopy Lake Park
what do you want for
perfect
Christmas?
for that.
All I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth. Oh, no, I've got that. I have everything it needs, as it turns out.
You've been awful silent over there. So let's talk about, do you have any daily habits? You read books. We all read books, success books and personal development books, and people are doing the same things over and over again. You see the same success. Branson maybe meditating, or, do you do any of that stuff? Do you meditate? Do you write down? Do you scribe? Do you read? What do you do?
I've tried meditation. I'm pretty sure I have undiagnosed ADHD, so I can't. I'll close my eyes for 5 seconds and then I get bombarded with I need to do this, I need to do that. Habits. So one thing, and it doesn't really come out of books. It just comes out of what feels right and what works. And I read those same type of leadership books. I've got a great book I'm going through right now called The Leader's Bookshelf by Admiral Stavridis. He went out and solicited from 50 different current and retired military individuals books on leadership that inspired them.
Nice.
And it's about 5 to 6 pages on each one where they give excerpts from the book.
That's cool.
As well as why it influenced somebody. And the books have been all over the map from what's that Chinese art of war that Belichick talks about? Shen Tzu. Somebody's got that. Somebody else has Doris Kearns Goodwin's book on Lincoln. And it's been great getting that. But to me, I find that fascinating. But one of the things that I really believe in, and I started years ago, as my region at Enterprise has grown, and I now have, as I said, almost 25 folks, and they're working in 10 different locations. I regularly schedule time to be out at those other locations. I could easily do my job just sitting in my office in Salem, but you don't get a feel or a flavor for what's happening there.
Nice.
Somebody who might pick up the phone and call me with a question are far more likely to have a good dialogue when I'm there. And another thing that I do is on Outlook, I put my calendar for the full next week. So I'll say, Monday I'm going to be in Methuen for half a day at our Methuen office. I'm going to be in Lawrence for the second half of the day. I'm going to spend the entire day Tuesday in Nashua. Wednesday I'm going to be in Salem for the whole day. Thursday, half the day in Wyndham. And so folks
you stick with that, though? I mean, a lot of people do that, and then they cheat themselves out. And I'm a big believer in don't cheating yourself out on the things that you need to do too, personally or professionally.
Yeah, no, I stick with it unless it's just unavoidable. So if we've got a large deal that's going into credit committee, and our bank president and senior lender say, let's sit down and talk about it, you maneuver it around.
Yeah.
But no, I stick with it. And what happens is, a lot of times, the lenders out in the field, our lender in Andover, our lenders in Derry, will look forward to that, and they'll say, hey, I made a couple of appointments when you're here to drop in on these prospects. And so I think a leader with multiple locations like I have really needs to be out in the field. I think that's the way to do it effectively. Transparency is critical. That's a habit to me that's very important. Everybody in my region, even folks who don't report to me, they know where I'm going to be.
Yep.
And
so everybody knows on Tuesday you're here, and Thursdays or Friday you're at Wyndham for a half a day, so they know where you're going to be.
And one of the things that we do at the bank each year is we'll do a 360 where folks will comment on what I can do better and what I'm doing well. And accessibility is the key. Isn't that the key for anybody out there for their boss? Hey, I know if I need you, I can reach you.
Yep.
And so I've really tried to take that to another level. And so
you also don't know what other opportunities are going to come out. When you put yourself in Wyndham, there may be an opportunity that you get because you're there. The client that you met or the appointment that they set could be something that you might not have gotten if you weren't there.
Yeah, other habits, you got to make a little bit of time for exercise. Sure. You absolutely have to. Even if it's like this morning, I was up at 6 a.m. I was on the treadmill for half an hour as I was reading deals.
Nice.
Don't worry, hanging on to a guardrail with one hand. But, you got to make a little time for that. You've got to make time for your family and all that. My parents are still around, so I made sure, have breakfast with my dad today.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when you were saying accessibility, that needs to be translated into family. And,
oh boy,
I know there was one chamber member that had a rule, which I loved, because we have so many events, and her rule of thumb, because her kids were little, is if I have a morning event, I'm not doing an evening event. I got to choose because I want to either get them out of bed or tuck them in bed. And I think, accessibility transcends everything, like in all our arenas.
And the last key, as you said at the beginning, Donna, is involvement. You've got to be involved. It does two things. It has business benefits, but it also makes it so rewarding.
Sure.
Too. And so that's just
that's your advice to people. Get involved.
Get involved. Be accessible. Be humble.
Love it.
And treat everybody with respect.
Love it. Couldn't get any better. This has been
perfect.
Awesome. Been absolutely awesome. Thank you.
You're fantastic. And I do need to full disclosure, I'm only the president of the chamber because of the influence of Peter Rayno. When I'm interviewed someday, they say influencers, you hit those crossroads. And again, we were just out, and I'm thinking about, what do I want to be when I grow up? And next thing I know, he's like, you want a job? You should interview for the chamber director. And I'm like, what's a chamber? I mean, and I have not looked back. I've been so blessed. Awesome. And that wouldn't have happened without that type of accessibility. And you talked about knowing someone's character and personality. You took a chance, and I'm grateful. I enjoy my life very much. So there are human resources representatives watching this show who are going to be horrified by what I say. Resumes are important. But it has never been the critical factor for me. I've always said this. Two measurements: technical ability and personal character. If I've got somebody who on a resume is a 1 to 10, is a 10, and they've got 30 years of banking experience, they can look at a statement of cash flows and break it down in 10 seconds. They're a level 10. Yep. If they're a 10, but in my meetings and interactions with them as a person, I think they're a 6 or 7, I'll pass on them almost every time. Flip the script. If I've got somebody who is just a good person but lacks some of that technical skill, I can backfill the technical skill. Excellent. I can't backfill the character. And with Donna Morris, we were at a crossroads. The chamber was just improving, just getting on its feet, and our thanks to you. Well, very much so. Dick Landry, the late Dick Landry, more so, and not many others, but. We were at a crossroads, and we got resumes from people with chamber experience and everything else. And I had known Donna from Success by 6 and Salem Community Television. I'm like, you know what? We can she's got the willingness to learn and the drive. We can backfill the other stuff. Nice.
She bombed her first interview.
Oh, yeah, I did.
She bombed her first
yeah.
interview.
That's awesome.
And
I love
so
these kind of stories when
Here
people
I was,
bomb.
Craig. I'm talking up Donna Morris. Not many people knew her. And she comes in. I said, she's going to wow you. And the interview went terrible. And myself and young Nancy Carney were pushing hard for her. We're like, what do we do? So we went back and said, look, she was just really nervous. Bring her in again. She came in again, knocked their socks off. The
Nice.
rest.
Yeah.
13 years
I was
later.
very
We're going to have to
nervous.
talk about that story on one of these podcasts. I want to hear
She
that
was
one,
nervous,
right?
Craig. She was just nervous.
It was bad.
But you know what? I didn't give up. And I've
Thank
done
you.
that same hiring approach with folks who work with me as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Wicked awesome.
Yeah.
That's what we think. That's our tagline. Wicked awesome company.
Hey, you know, it's funny. You want to be a good manager, hire good people. And I mean good people.
Yeah.
They make it so much easier.
Yeah.
So
Makes your job a lot easier,
you
right?
guys do. You guys are great with the back and forth and the witty banter. It's like you've been doing this forever.
Thanks. I've actually really enjoyed myself, and you've made this. We were talking about this. Dave and I were talking the other day. I said he's the perfect first guest for our podcast, and I'm totally psyched to be here with you, Donna. This has been great, and Ed, you're the best, even though you haven't said a single thing.
Listen, it's about the guest.
Hey, listen, Ed, for 11 years, I hosted the Boys and Girls Club TV show. I was doing live TV interviews of kindergartners. If you can do that, you can do anything.
Yeah,
That's true.
Well, thank you again for coming
Awesome.
in today, Peter.
you,
I
guys.
appreciate
I
it.
was actually really nervous, and this has been great. You've been fantastic, and Craig's nice working with you. And
Thank you.
again, Ed,
We'll see you
thank
next week. We're going to have Paul Parisi is going to be joining us
Yeah.
next week.
Oh, you're stepping up the quality of your
We're
guests.
stepping up the quality of our guest. We're going to go from fireman to fire marshal. How's that?
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you,
guys.
Appreciate it.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.